Some of you may remember a kids movie from the late 90s called George of the Jungle, featuring a man, played by Brendan Fraser, who was lost in the African jungle as a baby after being in a plane crash. He lived all the way into adulthood alongside his well-educated ape friend named Ape. While on some sort of safari, a woman by the name of Ursula stumbles upon George and he brings her back to his treehouse, and to make a long story short, they end up getting married, blah blah blah. That part isn't really important. What I want to talk about is how this orphan George was able to survive under the care of gorillas since infancy and still knows the English language, and more importantly, how his friend and caregiver Ape knows English and is able to act as a human would. I find this whole situation highly disturbing, and I will say why. First, I want to expose this so-called friendly ape. Judging by the age of both George and Ape, they both would have been born around the same time, making them both babies at the same time. We can all agree that an infant ape cannot look after a human infant, or vice versa, so there would have had to have been a third party in play here, someone or something that raised George and Ape and taught them English, although there is no mention of anyone like that throughout the film. Another thing that makes this whole thing even fishier is a line uttered by a certain African safari/tour guide while speaking about the local populace in the area that George lives in. "They only speak Swahili," he said. This is very strange, seeing as both Ape and George are fluent in English, though neither have ever left the jungle. On another note, Ape is the only one of his kind that is able to talk, and the rest of his brethren seem like normal apes, except for the fact that they are able to play the drums. My theory is that this third party had some sort of ulterior motive to only teaching George and Ape to talk, and only teaching the rest of the gorillas to play the drums. Maybe this third party had some sort of sick, twisted utopia for himself set up, where George and Ape would be his walking, talking servants, and the rest of the gorillas would be there for the sole purpose of musical entertainment. But the remaining question is yet to be answered. What happened to this third party? Why isn't it still around? I believe that there was a revolt led by George and Ape, and they somehow convinced the rest of the local gorillas to assist them, which ended up in the murder of the third party. Now that George and Ape were the most intelligent beings for miles and miles, they were able to assert their dominance over the rest of the animals in the jungle. But George and Ape had one more problem. Which of them would be in charge? I believe there is an argument regarding this, one that Ape, who is clearly more intelligent than George, ends up winning, diminishing George to nothing more than a servant/slave that would do more complicated tasks for Ape that the rest of the gorillas could not fulfill. When George stumbles upon Ursula and brings her back to the treehouse where he and Ape live, they put on a front for her so as not to seem suspicious in case some other humans were nearby. When George finally goes back to America with Ursula, he believes he has finally escaped from Ape's evil clutches, but unfortunately for him, Ape contacts some poachers who are hired to capture George and bring him back to Ape so that he doesn't lose his free labor, which is the key to his luxurious lifestyle. When Ape learns that George does not intend to bow down to his commands once he returns to Africa, he intends to murder him, but can't, since Ursula shows up just in the nick of time to be a witness in the would-be murder of George. Ape was going to commit George's murder somewhere around the time of the second George of the Jungle movie, George of the Jungle 2, but couldn't because he and Ursula are continuously on the run from George, although it is not apparent to the casual viewer. In the end, Ape quits his obsessive behavior over George and decides to not kill him, and George is once and for all able to escape from the evil Ape Man that he once called his only friend.